Hi, thanks so much for tuning into my channel. I hope you'll join me today for this tutorial painting these sunflowers in a pumpkin. Today I'm using my SeimiArt and Sonnet watercolors. I have my size 6 watercolor round brush, my watercolor palette. I have 2 jars of water, one for rinsing and one for painting. I'm using my 350 GSM watercolor paper. This is cut to a 4x5. And I have a clean cloth for dabbing any mistakes and blotting my brush, etc. Let's get started. Wanted to do these sunflowers in or coming out of a pumpkin. I just thought that sounded fun, and it was just an idea I had, and I thought I want to try it. So I'm starting with my Indian red, and this is just kind of a brownish orange, and I just like it. I feel like it's really giving great autumn vibes. So I'm going to start in the center of my pumpkin here. And I'm going darker on the one side, and I'm going to go ahead and just do the next one and bring in a little more pigment there. And then I'm rinsing slightly my brush and just filling. And see, I have some leaves and my flowers, but I definitely want to have more pigment on each section of this. I want to have more pigment on this left side and also on the bottom, and actually really kind of all the way across the bottom, because that's going to have just naturally more shadow. Pumpkins they're super fun, and of course they're, seasonal. This is a great time to be painting them. And I painted some a couple of years ago, but I really have not painted any since then, other than maybe in my acrylics, which, I love to do. And I do a lot of that rock painting where, I just paint these rocks and leave them places for people to find. Now you could come back with some dark brown, maybe just, a deeper shade, and drop some of that in here. I'm not going for perfection, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. I may do a little more blending, we'll just see. And these I'm just brushing in, and then I'll bring a bit more of the pigment. But I just love this color for pumpkins. I think for me, it's just the right orange, because it has some of that brown in it. And I do think I'll go ahead before this gets too dry and just kind of rinse my brush and then kind of blend in here. I don't think I had to necessarily, and I do want to be careful of putting water into it and causing it to push the pigment. But yeah, I think that's fine. And then one more section here. And, I'm trying to be careful of what I have penciled in, but I'm also trying not to be too perfect about it, because, well, that's not really my style, first of all, but, I just want to keep this fun. And so I'm not trying to make it, just totally perfect. I have my light source coming from this side over here. So as I've gone, I've tried to make sure I get a little bit lighter to that side. And then maybe dropping in some pigment up under where these leaves and sunflowers are going to be. Just, just a bit, and, not stressing over it or anything. And it can blend or not blend, kind of your choice there. I mean, obviously your choice. Okay, just give this a good rinse. Not too worried about if I take some of this orange you know, my Indian red and carry it into my yellow, I don't think that that will really be a problem, but I gave it a good rinse anyway. So now with my yellow deep, I'm gonna go in and just roughly and, you know, just in a fun manner, very loosely, create these petals. I kind of have an outline of, you know, where my flower is and kind of the angle that my flower is positioned, which that's very helpful to me. Just helps me to be mindful of it so that when I'm going in and putting in the center and, you know, all the other stuff, all the other components, I'm thinking about really the position of that flower. And I like to just add some of these little crescent slashes. Okay, there's one. Gonna let that be drying while I go in and do these others. Now, when I do, and this, I have gotten myself back where I'm hitting my camera or the stand with my brush, so forgive me on that. But these sunflowers down here are kind of leaning over, and so what I want to do here is pull these this way. And you could do it either way, but I like for the bulk of the pigment to end up down here rather than at the tip of the flower. Now try it, you know, experiment with different things and see what you like, because that works too. But this is kind of leaning over, and so I'm going to have petals coming around this side too. Okay, and some of these little slashy things. And this is just kind of my preliminary layer. Y'all, sorry about that. I gotta figure out what to do about that. And see, you know, use different techniques for getting these petals in there if you like. Just play with it and see what you end up liking and how you like to do these petals, because I do not have the ultimate way, and I'm still learning and teaching myself and playing with this. So see what you like, and I will probably change this a dozen times. These are just some little blooms over here, maybe. Using my size 6 round for this, and obviously I could change that for these little ones, but I like it. And I think that's the only little, you know, little bud sort of that I have for that. Okay, so just kind of want to go in. This is mostly dry. I have some pigment still wet right there. All right, now here I like to use my, gosh, I don't know, maybe today I'll use gold ochre. Let's just see what it looks like on my palette. I think that'll be good. And it's kind of a brown yellow, so it makes a nice additional layer on these. And when I do these, sometimes I like to have 2 petals layered on top. Sometimes I like to angle them a bit sideways, um, like leaning, kind of leaning over like that. Sometimes I like to make sure I'm in the middle of some of the petals. So, those are things I like to do to add a little more depth and to keep it kind of loose. There are a lot of options here, and really sunflowers are a great thing to just experiment and play, because you really can learn a lot, especially about the angles, just how to utilize these angles so that you can create a piece that I don't want to say is more realistic, because realism is not my goal, but something that is a bit more dynamic, maybe, and has, I don't know, just the elements of character for being able to interpret, you know. So, not realism per se, however, does kind of add some realism. So, just using this gold ochre in all of these flowers that are dry enough. Now I kind of back off, and I'm painting with window light, and so just trying to be sure that I have, that I'm working with dry uh, petals. And so just, you just kind of check that. So I like to add some behind there and inside. It just, adds some more layers. And sunflowers, gosh, they're so neat. They have all those layers and rows of petals, and then they have the rows of seeds, and just so fun. This one's a bit wet, so maybe work on the outside a little bit more, and then add some of these. Now, I've done quite a few sunflower tutorials, and one of the things I always say, especially if you're keeping it real loose and not super realistic, is don't give up. You're gonna hit a spot, or maybe you won't, but I definitely will always hit an ugly, awkward phase in my painting, and I generally want to give up, and I usually hate it. So if that happens to you, just hang in there, because sunflowers are just so great. And when you get the centers in there, it just comes alive, and all that hatred can go away. Okay, one thing that I'm noticing, and I just don't love it, so I'm going to try to blend this a bit better, but my brush was more wet when I did this section here. Oof. And I don't love that, because I've got this this crisp line there, so I'm going to try, I'm going to go in and blend to maybe this section here lightly, but I want to blend this out a bit more. And then I'll just come in with a little more pigment. And I don't mind this outer one. Ideally I wouldn't have it, but I'm not too worried. So I'm just kind of using some light strokes to pull that. And then I want to quickly get back in here with some shadow. And I don't know that that was a deal breaker or anything, but it was so different, and so to me, it was different from the other sections, so to me it seemed a little eye-catching and not really ideal. And just kind of add a few more brush strokes here and there. That way, if I have something show up and dry because of doing this, then maybe they all still look a bit cohesive. So I like that better, for sure. These sunflowers aren't looking super loose, so I'm going to go in with just a light wash now. I kind of wish I'd caught this a little earlier, but I just want to do some additional overlapping and just kind of soften these. They're, you know, it's not going to really matter, I don't think, but I love this one, but it's an open flower and they're just easier to do. Just adding a bit of lightly pigmented water here and let these kind of just bleed a bit and see what we get. Just kind of brushing some of that pigment out too. Okay, I like it. So I want to go in and I'm using my olive green for this, and you can use a different green. But you know, olive is just my go-to. I tend to love it with everything. So that's what I'm using today. And I'm going to go in and just do some of the sunflower leaves. And, you know, to keep these from being too precious or perfect, I'm just trying to hold my brush kind of loosely. And I want to touch the pigment here at the pumpkin because I don't want any glaring white areas. But then just pull that pigment back up. Okay, I like those. So I'm just kind of dragging my brush along these lines and then, you know, just kind of letting it paint what it wants to paint, I guess. And I am kind of going backward with my brush here, like pushing against the bristles. But here I'll drag into the flower. And then I just want to keep an eye on my values here. So see how down here I have this really dark green that looks like it will stay pretty dark. So I want to be sure that somewhere else where I'm working with a green, I really bring in some dark. And this one looks like it will probably be pretty dark. I've got another leaf outlined up here. Staying nice and loose with my leaves is not easy for me, and I'm really pretty happy with how these are going because I feel like I'm staying, you know, kind of loose with them. I also feel like this would be a really fun line and wash, and that is not my style either. I just haven't done it really, but I think it would be real fun to do. Okay, I'm gonna give this one more pass just to darken it up. And I have these little squiggles out here that are kind of like maybe the pumpkin vines or something. And so I'm going to go ahead and I just have still some pigment on my brush. So why not just go ahead and crank some of those out. Again, could switch to a smaller brush, but I'm happy with this. Just kind of staying light with it seemed to be working for me. So, and I did not sketch in anything here, but I think it just needed something. And this guy needs a stem. And now, excuse me, not every not every flower is going to need a stem, not every leaf. I don't think everything has to attach. That's my own personal style, and you know, you can feel free to do differently. Make this as detailed or as abstract as you like, because this is your painting. So I'm going to take just a little bit of my olive green into another well on my palette, and I'm going to add, I actually really like to add burnt umber to that. Now, one of the things I want to say is that I have not done some kind of extensive color chart and color blending chart, and so I just paint and I try things out, and sometimes I have things go kind of wrong because I didn't test particular paints together. That's actually something that, you know, it's definitely worthwhile to do, and I just don't do it. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants, and I tend to learn on the go. So if I'm making a big mistake with this, or if you ever see me painting and mentioning colors that I'm using, and you know why I shouldn't be doing that, I actually do welcome that. I love to learn, and you know, try not to hate me for it, for for not knowing it all. But that's just my own thing there. I had some of these little leafy branches kind of drawn, so just filling those in. Nice little detail, I think. These are so easy and fun, and just, you know, let go with the leaves. Don't worry too much about being too precise. I just want to go in here and kind of just add a little leaf and whatnot here and there. Let's see. Okay, I just kind of add a little bit of darker. Sometimes I like to go up. These kind of naturally did their own thing, and they have kind of some dark and light value, but sometimes I do like to go in with these and just add one little vein inside the leaf, and sometimes a shadow on the stem itself. Just, you know, a little extra detail and fleshing out here and there. Okay, I like it. Just kind of keeping it simple here. I'm just dipping my water in a little bit. I'm dipping my brush in a little bit of water, and I'm going to come up here just right up against the bottom of this pumpkin, and I'm trying not to leave white areas, but I'm not gonna kick or kill myself over it, but just adding a little shadow there, and then brush this out a bit. Sometimes I do the water first, but just gonna go and really give this a little more area to bleed a bit, and then kind of just blending it just a bit. And then I probably take some dark brown just right up at the edge of the pumpkin. Love that. Maybe take the tiniest bit up here. For a second I thought I grabbed black, but that's dark brown. That's just very dark. Okay, and I am rinsing and blotting that because I just want to come back and blend that a bit. I feel like even with the blotting, some water went into that, but I think it's okay. All right, I'm loving this. I think, you know, generally everything is pretty much done. I'm ready to just go in and do these centers. Now here, you could definitely go with a smaller brush. I'm not, because I like to live on the edge or something. I don't know. The one thing I want to make sure not to do or to be careful of is any water that might be up here on the ferrule. I just like to make sure that, you know, that's not like that. So I don't have any yucky surprises with any of the water dancing down that and onto my painting. I don't want a big glob of dark pigment flooding what I've already done. So then I'm just going in and I kind of, because this has some petals kind of in the foreground, I'm just, the only careful I think that I'm being is to be sure that I have the brown behind those foreground petals, if that makes sense. And there's probably a much better way to describe that, but that's all I was trying to be careful of. And then I'm just dotting these centers. I kind of feel like I could go ahead and dot that. Okay, and then I just want to dot, and I don't, you know, I don't take this too seriously. I just kind of go and then see what else it needs. But I do like having some of these dots in between some of those foreground petals. And because these petals out here are farther away, you can even go, you know, kind of on top of those a bit. You don't want to get rid of all of your layers there, but you can do that. So that's kind of what I did. And I like it. Looks okay. These I feel like I'm really going to love because the petals are truly in the foreground. And so I think, you know, this is going to show some nice depth. And just being sure to dot so that you don't eradicate all of the white. That'll give you the look of having some seeds in there without having to come back with like a white gel pen or whatever else. Gouache, I guess. Even acrylic, I guess, if you were doing mixed media. And I try to kind of turn my brush here and there. The tip gets kind of static and starts making the same pattern. And so I like to turn that so that I'm getting some differences in there. Yeah, I love that. Okay, 2 more to go. And just trying to be sure to generally use an oval type shape rather than a circle, because I did not paint any of these as if I was looking, you know, head on at them. You can do that, and if you do, then I suppose the center of your flower will be more of a circle, but that's not what I did, and it's generally something I try not to do because I like the way it looks for the flowers to all have kind of a different angle. You know, they're all oriented a little bit differently as they would be if they were, you know, in some arrangement. Gosh, I love that. That's cute. And this turned out. I'm so glad. I wasn't sweating it, but wasn't sure it was going to go okay. All right, these little foreground petals, so just be sure to get in between those. This one, I lost some of the detail of the white, but it's okay. It's kind of, you know, kind of small and would be kind of closed up anyway. But yeah, I like it. It's really super cute. That make a fun piece of wall art even, I think, for fall and autumn. So yeah, I like it. I hope you'll let me know if you painted this. And I always appreciate your comments. You guys are so wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me for this tutorial. And as always, happy painting!